what I want to dig into is what does that student journey actually look like, and where are there opportunities to engage from day one or even before. But before I hand over to Yaseen and John to introduce themselves, I want to just tell you a little bit about myself, for its studio and Forum. So Forum is a platform that everyone is on at the moment. It provides technology designed for university and school alumni teams, things like donation portals, in-person registration, and virtual events just like this one. So our tech directly integrates with Razor's Edge and XT, so it's super simple to use. That's all the promo I will be doing for today. More importantly, I'd want to just highlight that our team has created things like the Forum Academy for alumni professionals to learn from their peers and connect with each other. So really take this opportunity to message each other in the chat. If you are joining us live, tell us where you're from, who you are, what's your background a little bit, and please feel free to ask questions. Once the webinar is finished, head on over to the breakout room where I'll be there with Yaseen and Jonathan as well. But yeah, anyway, that's me. I'm going to hand over to John, or as I call him, JJ, to introduce himself. And then, John, if you want to hand over to Yaseen as well.
Sure, will do. Thanks, Dan. Hi, everyone. My name is Jonathan, or JJ, if that's easier. And I am the Change Director for Student Experience at the University of Glasgow. I've been doing that for the last 2 years. And for the decade prior to that, I was the Director of Admissions, Student Recruitment and Widening Participation. So moved from that pre-student journey to very much the student journey whilst they're on campus studying. And yeah, really keen to share some thoughts and chat with Yaseen and Dan over the next hour or so. So my current work is about leading change across the university to improve the student experience. And every university will probably tackle this differently, as we do in so many other ways. But we're focusing on the non-academic experience. So we're looking at trying to improve student opportunity, student well-being, student inclusion and belonging, and tapping into the physical and digital campus environment and projects that we're working on in other sort of spheres. So very much sort of connecting the dots to try and improve the holistic student experience, non-academic and academic, working with other teams, which ultimately will help develop that deep and positive connection with our people in places that will ultimately help have an engaged alumni audience. So really keen to chat and hear what your thoughts and any questions. So, and I will hand over to Yaseen.
Right, thank you very much, JJ. Hi there, everyone. My name is Yaseen. I'm the former president of Newcastle University Students Union. So in that role, I was responsible for representing the 30,000 students at Newcastle at the university level. So attending meetings with the VC, meeting with the alumni team, amongst the student experience team, so on and so forth, to essentially ensure that the students at Newcastle got the best possible experience. So that's I've done that for about a year, so it's a 1 year tenure. And then in addition to that, I'm also school governor for a local secondary school in Newcastle, and I'm also on the UCAS Student Advisory Group, where I work with the senior management at UCAS to help improve the admission experience for incoming students. Thank you.
And I think it's probably prudent to note, Yaseen, that you're not joining us from prison.
Yes, we've got the lovely the lovely surroundings of the Philip Robinson Library behind us, which is just testament to the reason why we need to get more alumni funding.
Okay, I thought I would just put that out there because when you joined in the green room, we were having a bit of a laugh to say, "What is this? Where are you right now?" But let's dive into kind of that first topic, kind of starting with the student journey. So it'd be nice to maybe plot some of those elements out there of kind of the first question. Really is like when does a student journey begin? Some would say, on the first day of campus. Other people from an alumni perspective would say, the first couple of years. the interaction is just to kind of get them through and have a bit of fun, and then connect with them in year 3 or year 4. But I'd like to kind of put that out to you guys. Maybe JJ, if you want to just speak about that first.
Yeah, sure. Obviously, I'm looking at the title of the event, Alumni Engagement from Day One. It's kind of staring me in the face, but I want to kind of scribble on it minus 365 days, because it starts from that point of inquiry, really. That is the first engagement when potential students are starting to think about their university choices, and they're looking for that place which they connect to. And obviously the academic subject is a key driver there, but also it's about the community, it's the campus, it's the place in the city or rural location, wherever it is, that they feel they can identify with and feel that they could be part of that community. So really, that approach needs to start from the earliest point, whether that's an undergraduate or for potentially 3-4 years, depending where they're studying, a postgraduate researcher, again 4 or 5 years, or postgraduate or master's student who's just going to be there for 12 months. So having that view of that student journey, there'll be some common parts of it, but then they'll all be experiencing that from their unique personal perspective. Identifying that early on and connecting with the teams who are responsible for that part of the student journey, because it's pretty fragmented. There's lots of key handover points along the way. So trying to, from an alumni team perspective, being aware of how are we engaging with that potential student audience? What are we saying to them? How are we saying it? And then trying to keep that continuity with the student service teams, who will pick up from admissions and recruitment as that inquirer hopefully converts through being an applicant, offer holder, new student to student on program, connecting in with those teams and ensuring that you are using some of that same terminology, some of the same sort of messaging, and even if systems don't connect, and they often don't, you might be using a different system, different channel, it might look and feel different, but how can you make that as consistent and as a commonality for the experience as you can, and work with what you've got.
Yaseen, what are your thoughts on that?
No, I completely agree with what JJ said. In terms of the student journey, a lot of future students start looking at universities, in their sixth form years, first year, second year of sixth form, so year 12, year 13 here in the UK. So, they'll be going to open days. They'll be looking at things like universities will be coming in for talks. I remember during my time in sixth form, I think we had all the local universities come in to give a talk about, here's all the courses we do, here's what we're all about, here's why you should come along. But also, I think with lots of universities also have programs where they try and help disadvantaged students get into university. So, for example, at Newcastle University, we've got a partners program, which essentially aims students from certain backgrounds who might have been disadvantaged in their lives to help them get into university, such as through lower entry requirements and through running summer schools to help improve their skills. So a lot of these programs usually start 1 to 2 years before students join the university. So I think there's quite a strong opportunity for the alumni team to possibly see, is there any links we can make with these programs, such as partners or other universities' respective programs. So you've got all of that. And then you've also got things like UCAS, for example, who host discovery events for future university students. So basically exhibitions where loads of different universities come along, and students can just walk around the hall and meet different universities. So it's about seeing, as JJ has mentioned, where can we find those links? But where can we find those links with other parts of the universities, reaching out to sort of start interacting with these students? And I think it's quite important we do reach out early on, a year, possibly even 2 years before students come to our universities, to start building those relationships and developing those foundations.
Yeah, those lead times, just to pick up on that point you're saying, I think that's great. I mean, the lead times are getting longer and longer. I mean, I can think about some of our widening access programs where we're starting to engage with school pupils in primary school. particularly in disadvantaged areas. And quite often, as they transition through into secondary education, we have on-campus experiences and we'll connect them with current students. But what I don't think we do, which is an interesting area, is to connect them into alum. So can alum actually come along and say, potentially from those backgrounds, those postcode areas, those schools, I came from your background, I went to university, I'm now doing this. How inspiring is that? And actually also it's a way for alum to connect in, potentially from a giving and support perspective, to support those programs, because they're all under pressure from a funding perspective. So the more you can connect in right at the start of the journey with those that are through the other end, whether recently or a while ago, really helps to forge that connection and speaks to the university's wider purpose. It's not just about education and preparing for the world of work. It's about helping to support the communities in which we're based, and young people that are coming through some really difficult, challenging situations. And how can we support their aspiration and help them achieve what they dream?
Be nice to know, just from some of the people that are watching this just now, if you have any programs similar to that, or from an alumni perspective that you've been involved with or connecting alumni in, just drop it in the chats there, and I'll read it to Yaseen and JJ. But kind of moving on from that thing, and obviously we got the title wrong, JJ, so we should just send alumni engagement from day negative. 365 or
X years, whichever way you want to go.
Years. I guess there's probably there are resource elements behind that as well from the alumni team in terms of where they need to prioritize their time for the most.
But quite often they can be in the same directorate or team as the widening participation, widening access teams. So if external engagement, external relations, or student recruitment teams, however they're configured, they're often in the same area.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think it could be just something as simple as being able to have access to that data and saying, yes, we've got X, Y, Z alum.
Data.
You guys go and do it. I know. We'll have a full webinar on data later. So I think there's also that discussion about kind of different variations of a student journey. So let's talk about that before, but let's talk about kind of from their first day on campus, and we're looking at things like outside of just the academic elements, like clubs, societies, teams. Do you feel that there are opportunities there for alumni teams to be engaged with those elements, or how important do you feel that being involved in kind of some of the extracurricular activities that students are involved in? So it'd just be nice to get your thoughts on that. Maybe Yaseen, I might go to you first because I went to JJ first last time.
No, that's a really good question.
Unless you don't want me to, then I'll go to JJ.
Let's share.
Fine.
No, it's a really good point. I think, at least from when I was student union president only 2 weeks ago, most of our students interacted with us through student society, student sports clubs, rather than through the other elements. So it's, when students join university, they want to find a group where they can really connect with, and student societies are the best way for individuals to find that group. And I think it's quite important to see how alumni teams can sort of tap into that as per essence. So I think one good way, and I've seen a few universities do this, is to sort of create a graduate society of. So, for example, if you've got a student society, let's say, chess society, for example, why not have a graduate chess society which could sort of help mentor and support the student society? So finding ways to essentially connect these societies with alumni, I think, would be a great idea, to sort of interact the alumni with the students and to introduce that concept of the term alumni, or what the alumni team does, to these students, so that when they graduate, they could possibly give back as well. And also, I think alumni teams could work more closely with student societies, for example, providing them with access to grants coming directly from the alumni, or providing them with connections, support, mentoring, various other things such as those. I think could be quite beneficial to help, not just help these students develop during their time at university, but also help them to gain an appreciation for the alumni network, and hopefully that should get them more closely embedded into the whole alumni ecosystem once they leave, because they will have basically, if you have a more positive experience of your time more positive experience at university, you're more likely to come back and give back to the university. So if these students have experienced have benefited from getting advice from alumni, let's say as part of the societies or getting some funding, they're going to be more likely to have a positive time at university, a more positive experience, and they're probably going to be more likely to come back in a few years to give back to the university. Sorry, I feel like I've just rambled on.
No, I think I get what you're saying. I think it's a case of looking further afield than just segmenting your alumni into what they studied.
No, exactly.
And looking about what actually would pull their emotional heartstrings. Like, where would they actually want to give back, not only with time, but with funding. I do think that it's a bit of an easier ask if it's something directly related to something that you're passionate about or you were passionate about during university. Obviously, everyone's passionate about their studies, but they may be passionate about some other things too. But John, do you want to
yeah, sure,
shed some light on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great discussion point, because I think sometimes you can fall into the trap about talking about the student community or the student population or the student experience as if it's a homogeneous thing, and it really isn't. And the traditional focus around connecting with cohorts in a subject area or an academic school is just one piece of that overall university experience. And whilst there are pressures around some of that extracurricular and co-curricular activity, which we'll touch on later, it's still a hugely important part of that self-discovery and the journey that young people are on when they enter university and progress and develop connections, and ultimately looking for their tribe. And that tribe could be in their subject area, but don't assume so. It could be a sport club, it could be an academic society, it could be a sort of leisure hobby club or grouping. It could be the hall of residence they stay in. It could be a pool of scholarship recipients. There's a whole different way you can slice and dice that to think, well, what is the group? And your alum will have had those same multiple tribes in many cases as well. So, and I think I've certainly heard of examples here at Glasgow where some of the student clubs and societies reach out to former alum off their own bat. But can those links, can that be supported by alumni teams to have it in a sort of more immersive, supported, comprehensive way across all the different sort of aspects of university life? I think there's definitely probably not a lot to lose by reaching out to clubs and societies, but potentially quite a lot to gain and making those connections with alum and current students.
I think that it's quite interesting that you talk about your tribe, JJ. And I think when we were having some conversations before, you really mentioned 3 words, which were community, belonging, and pride. I would like to maybe have a discussion of how that ties into the brand of a university and the consistency of a brand, and maybe push it even a little bit wider to say, where in the world is that done really well, or do we perceive it to be done really well, and what learnings can we take from that to really build a better sense of community, a better sense of belonging, and ultimately more pride in the institution that we attended.
Sure, and that connects with the point we were discussing right at the start in terms of engaging very early in that pre-student phase of the journey, and having that consistent tone of voice, branding, visual messages, channels, just is really important to unite the different stages. So it's that common thread, what is and we'll all have a version of our sort of proposition, what we're all about as an institution, and how do you keep that going throughout the whole period they are thinking about coming to you, or with you, and afterwards. So yeah, I mean, it comes down to to the connections with the marketing and comms team and brand teams, as well as the teams who are out there in market and talking to people, teachers, parents, advisors all the time. You want to have some commonality and consistency. Say, this is who we are, and if you come to us, you'll be part of that community. And the Glasgow example is Team U of G. We try and use that right from the start. You are coming to a place where you'll be part of a team. And how well we do, how well you do, is all down to how well that team works together. Work in progress for sure, but it gives us something to unite behind and have that consistent presentation. And when we're not working as well as a team, students can push back and say, actually, you said this, don't feel that's really sort of embodying what you've told me. So what can we do about it to improve it? And having that engagement with students along the way, so that they do feel that they've been listened to, that there is some empathy, and it's not just a slogan. It actually means something, and you do try and live and breathe it.
Yaseen, did you want to add something to that around kind of belonging, pride, and community, and how universities here could be doing it better, or are they doing it well enough?
I think it's just that sense of making sure. Well, one of the biggest problems we've had in the student union sector that I've noticed when I've been speaking with my student union colleagues across universities is there's that lack of sense of belonging among students. So, for example, you've got in Newcastle, for example, we've got students across various different campuses. So we've got the business school Helix area, which is about 10-15 minutes away from the central campus. We've got the main libraries, which is a bit of a distance away from the central campus. So these areas create their own sort of communities, but sometimes these communities don't feel like they're a part of the wider university. You've also got growing international student numbers. So with international student numbers growing, there's that sense when I've been speaking with some of the students that they don't feel a part of the university because maybe they don't understand the norms, or maybe that communication isn't there. So I think there could be a better job in terms of improving things like communication, improving that sense of belonging, but through those means, incorporating different cultures. But also, alumni could also play a big role here. Of, let's say, if you've got a group of international students who are struggling, who don't feel very well connected with the university, maybe you could say, well, could we find some alumni in our alumni who have graduated from our university, who've had similar experiences, but who have then went on to like really connect with the university and really do well? Could we see if we could connect them as mentors to help improve their student experience, so that they can essentially improve their student experience and feel more well connected with the university over time? So essentially, the introduction of things like mentors, I think, could be quite beneficial to help improve that sense of belonging across the university, and targeting those mentors. Using specific alumni to target specific students as mentors, I think, could be quite beneficial.
And it's tough, right? I mean, the students are coming from lots of different backgrounds. So, UG, PGT, PGR, but then you've got mature, commuting, disabled, international students, all coming with different expectations. In some cases, more intense demands for support. They've gone through some really challenging times, and actually to connect with one another is increasingly difficult in many ways. And this might be something that alum, even just from 4 or 5 years now, 4 or 5 years ago, might not fully comprehend. So you do have to start thinking about how you can curate and support some of those opportunities to connect and network and find your tribe and feel like you belong, more so than what we probably had to do just a few years ago. And those things can support students to feel like they do belong, and then ultimately, if they feel supported along the way and they have as good an experience as they can, then it's the building blocks to having that positive, engaged alumni community that you can potentially then continue to engage and connect back into the institution.
Yeah, really good points, guys. I'll keep prompting people as well. If you have any questions, stick them in the chat, or if you don't worry about it. But there have been no questions yet, so you could be the first if you want. Stick it in the chat. But what I would like to kind of move on to is kind of the opportunities for alumni teams to connect with students during their downtime, where real memories and real feelings of emotional connection to that period of their life are happening in real time. And maybe have a discussion as well about kind of that phrase of the student time poverty. And I think it also relates to what you were just saying there as well, JJ, about how student life now is a lot different than it was 5-10 years ago. So when people
For
are
sure.
actually graduating into it. So you mentioned that kind of learn, earn, and enjoy segmentation, but maybe weave that into what are students doing with their downtime, or maybe even lack of it, or do they have any downtime?
It's tough. So obviously there's traditional components, if you like, of university life would be learning, to some extent earning, not for everyone, but for some, and enjoyment. So all of that extracurricular, co-curricular side of things. But what we've seen over the last few years is the earning component of that is much more important and taking up a much bigger chunk of time. So depending on which kind of research you look at, anywhere between 50 and 60% of students have to be working to support them through their education. Yeah, and typically, I mean, that's a few years ago, that's we would say, well, that's not a bad thing. 15, 20 hours is possibly manageable, but it gives you, you're building a lot of other experience, you're building other skills. But actually now an increasing proportion of those students who have to work are working 20, 25, 30 hours a week in a long-time full-time study alongside full-time study. So it's increasingly difficult for them to tap into some of those enjoy bits of the student experience, because they have to commute to a job, do the job, potentially commute to campus. And the more things you can do to support their time on campus, sort of in a connected way, so they're getting the best possible use of their time on campus, because it's under pressure. So how can you use that time when they are there to engage in a meaningful way, and from an alum team perspective, not just tell them about the alumni community, but to show them, that old adage, right? Don't tell, show. How can you weave that into their experience on campus, so they get to understand what will follow, and bear in mind some of the, as again, connecting the conversation earlier on, some of the pre-students, the applicants we are talking about, they won't have a clue what an alumni or an alum is. So it's as they start to come through that student journey, they might become aware of it, and they can then sort of start to understand what the benefits may be if you weave that into the time that they do have on campus. So the other part of university life, so mental health, physical health, time to rest and recuperate, access to basic resources, good food, good nutrition, good places to live. All of those things are also increasingly complex and challenging, and as a result, having time to forge those connections and find your tribe and take part in other activities is really tough. So a lot of recent alum will have had a very different experience. So it's about telling that story and building that empathy amongst your alumni base, so they can think, okay, how do we engage? How do we support? And there's some avenues there and themes that you could use for campaigning.
Yaseen, as still really kind of a current student, because you're still taking, you're going into your PGT, or you're going to postgrad?
Law exams, yeah.
Your law exams, sorry, I got that completely wrong. Can you give us a bit of insight in terms of what you saw, it being involved in unions, being involved with students? What challenges are students facing at the moment, and where could those challenges turn into opportunities for alumni teams to engage and build a strong connection?
No, that's a very good question, Dan. In terms of challenges facing students, I think JJ really touched upon them. The main thing being cost of living I think there was some recent research, you might have heard about it, from the Higher Education Policy Institute, saying that students on average have about 50p per week to live on after paying their rent, if you just go off the average maintenance loan that students get. So that's touching on to JJ's point of, students are having to work more and more hours, which is affecting everything. And I think this is also a real opportunity for us to reach out to the alumni community to see how we can get them to support our students. And I think Newcastle University is probably an example of where they've been doing that through our Student Disbursement Fund. So the Student Disbursement Fund is, in essence, a giant pot of funding from alumni donations, and different people in the university or the student union officers can apply for funding to run different initiatives, mainly focused around cost of living. So, for example, this pot of funding has helped to fund things like our student pantry. It's helped to fund things like calculated loan scheme to support students with equipment costs, so on and so forth. So I think linking that story of students who are having to work loads of extra hours, which is affecting their studies, and essentially telling that story of how students are really struggling during this cost of living crisis to alumni can sort of help to develop those connections. And then getting that funding from the alumni to support the students could help to raise awareness amongst the student body of, look, this money's coming from the alumni team to support all of us. So it introduces them to that concept of alumni, the alumni team, and so on and so forth. And then that goes back to my previous point of, if students feel supported during their time at university, they're going to have a more positive experience and they're going to be more likely to give back in the future.
Yeah.
Even though there's greater need for that sort of activity and that connection, it's interesting to note the other sort of shift that's happened over the last few years. So we used to talk about FOMO, so fear of missing out, right? And that would be a driver for students to engage with things. It's flipped completely. There's now a fear of joining in. And that's because of a lack of confidence, everything that people went through over the last few years in school, so lockdown and everything else, and that ability to build those connections and to relate to people. You've got to recognise that as that will feed through university, and those will be the people who will be your alum community. So there's a lot of work to do to support and curate to get the current cohorts coming through into a position that your previous cohorts would have just been in. Just the sort of the function of the university experience, but there's so many other issues that are now coming through at the start when coming from school, coming from home backgrounds, etc. It's increasingly challenging, and we need to respond to that to make sure that the university provides the best possible experience and support they can. But you also, as an alumni team, you have to recognise that and adapt accordingly.
Really good points, guys. Fear of joining in.
Foji, yeah, we should trademark that, Dan.
So I asked for questions and I got a comment and a question. So we're doing okay. So first one's from Jack, and it's a bit of a long one, so I'm just going to read it as I go. But Jack was saying, and Jack's from Bradford University. We co-delivered alumni events with a couple of societies, and they've been great. Good. Bringing alumni and students together around a shared passion is impactful. That also presents a challenge, as you don't have the capacity to work with all societies in this way. So have the panelists, or have you guys experienced this? And if so, how do you approach it? I might go to Yaseen for this one, kind of being more involved in some of the student union, which automatically would be kind of bringing you into the societies. But did you see any co-delivered events with the university or with alumni teams, and how did that work out? Where was the share of the workload? Was it placed on the societies and the union, and then a little bit of support from alum, or was it led by the university and they asked you to join in?
Well, great question, Jack. To be fair, at Newcastle, this is probably one of the things we're lacking in, that connection between alumni and student societies and co-delivering events. So actually, as far as I'm aware, there's not many, if any, events that have been delivered between the alumni an association between the alumni and the student societies, and I think that's one area we can definitely improve on. So
no answer yet. No answer yet.
No answer yet. Sorry.
We'll have to get Jack on a webinar to talk about it. JJ.
There you go. There's your next one lined up. So I don't know if I've got an answer, but I guess a perspective or a suggestion, and is rather than trying to engage with them individually. So I mean, we've got 350 or so here at Glasgow club societies, and many universities will have many hundreds. And you're right, it's not possible to engage with them all individually, but quite often they will be supported by the student union or a student guild or whatever your setup is. So develop those links, and they could be a conduit for that connection, and see which club societies take you up on it. So rather you approach them, you extend the offer, and then they connect if they've got the opportunity, the bandwidth, and the willingness to do that. And then at least there's a bit of curation and a bit of ownership, which would help with the delivery of the event. So that would be a thought. Don't know if it's worth a go.
I guess it's increasing the visibility of engagement teams within unions or within some of the leading clubs and societies, and see if there's a bit of an opportunity there. Comment from Charlotte. As a student intern in the Jack says, thanks folks, some good food for thought there. You're very kind, Jack.
Yeah, I'm not sure we really nailed that one, Jack, but yeah, hopefully it was helpful.
Very kind. Yeah. As a student, so Charlotte says, a student intern in the Alumni Relations Department from widening access, I can share a couple of reasons why I joined Strathclyde. The bursaries and scholarships make me feel I would be supported, or made me feel like I'd be supported, and the quick response time for emails and the website design all made Strathclyde a priority. So I quickly felt a strong sense of belonging. Student-orientated approach enticed me, and I felt my voice should be heard and I would be supported. So I strongly agree with the discussion.
Yeah, makes that point, doesn't it?
Even just something as simple as quick response to emails, design, so access to bursaries and scholarships seem like fairly standard things that should be delivered. And just making sure that that's as streamlined as possible.
When you feel important and valued, then that's one of the sort of core foundational pieces for feeling a connection with anything, whether that's sort of a commercial company or a university, and you start to establish some loyalty.
They're coming in now. Maria, okay. I'll ask this question, then I'm aware that we've got 5 minutes left, so I've got one more question after that to ask you guys. But Maria is saying, and this is actually pretty good. Not to say that the other questions weren't, but this is a good one. How would you advise an alumni that did not have a good experience during their time at university? And from your opinion, how could we change their mind?
Yeah, tough one. I guess I try and find out what the source of that less than good experience was, and is there something that you could involve that alumni in to help make the change? So if they had a particular negative experience with whether it's academic or non-academic, how could they be a partner and engage them that way to address so other students don't have the same issue? And that could be quite powerful, and helps to address. You can't change the experience they've had, right? It's negative, but you can potentially start to turn that around and think, well, actually, I've still listened to, and there's something has been done. I've had an influence. I've made a change based on my experience, and I think that would help to reframe their view on the institution and being part of the alumni community.
Yaseen, anything from you? What would make you engage if you had a terrible experience?
I think JJ has really touched on just the idea of being heard, being able to express my frustrations, whatever those frustrations were, and then being able to have that say of, or at least being able to feel like I've been heard and being able to give back. I think that goes back to the tenet of, why do we all want to give back to something? Why do we all volunteer or donate to an organisation? It's because we want to help improve things for the next generation. So I think really focusing on the message JJ said of, how can we improve the experience for the next generation of students? And really hitting onto that, I think, is probably the best way.
I think one of the...
And that's tough. You might not be able to do it, but at least you've had that conversation.
I think it's also mentioning that, student experiences have changed over time. So the challenges they may have faced, back in the 1980s could be completely different to the challenges students are facing now. And, explaining how their help could actually benefit loads of students. For example, if it was the case of the cost of living crisis and they were considering donating, maybe explaining like, oh, if you were to donate £10, this could help students with X, Y, and Z. So essentially the institution they studied at whenever they graduated is probably not going to be the exact same as it is now. So making that distinction as well.
That is a really good question on that. I think we could speak about that for quite some time. I think the one of the webinars before that Mary Rose and Hannah Fox run called Trials and Errors, one of the guests on there said, a disgruntled alumni or somebody who's unhappy can be turned into your strongest advocates because they actually care. They actually have an expectation of the university that they went to. They have an expectation in terms of the comms that need to go out, as opposed to somebody who's just disinterested and doesn't want to be involved. So those are kind of those opportunities, but that's for another discussion as well. We'll keep going with these topics here. But I would like to say, because I'm quite a stickler for time, we've got 2 minutes left, guys. So, and I didn't prepare you for this, and I usually do. I don't know why I didn't.
It's coming.
But it's just a very kind of brief summary in terms of what your main points are in terms of how to engage with current students from an alumni perspective. JJ, I'll pass you first if you just want to do about a minute, and then Yaseen as well.
Start early. So first point of the conversation, think about the student journey in its entirety, not just from day one when they turn up on campus. Be consistent, be genuine, demonstrate the benefit of connection with your alum community to your current students and vice versa. Focus on that, building connection, improving awareness and that understanding of what current students are doing and experiencing. Try and develop that deep positive connection with your people, your places, regardless of the student cohort, whether they're online students, transnational education students, students on campus, satellite campus, wherever they are. Try and build that connection, and you will have a stronger base as you can possibly have then for that future engagement. And that's the best I can do sort of on the spur of the moment, Dan.
Yeah, pretty good.
Thanks. 6 out of 10. Yeah,
it's a good one. Go, Yaseen.
You probably just mentioned most of my points, JJ. Yeah, the sense of starting early, seeing what other opportunities are there for the alumni team to work with different departments of the university. So, for example, Newcastle, the partners team, the alumni team, or the school's outreach team and the alumni team. Start building those connections early. See how you can support students throughout their journeys and see how you can use alumni to do that. So, for example, introducing mentoring schemes, not just for students who are about to graduate, but also students who are in their first year, second year, third year of their studies, because each of these students will have different needs, but seeing if you can find members of the alumni community to help support them and guide them, I think would be something that students would really appreciate. And I think just explaining what the term alumni means and explaining what this whole scary world of like the alumni team, advancement, all of that terminology means to students, because when you're a student and when you start university, you're just hammered with left, right, and centre with this. So I think it's just about explaining it and making sure you're explaining it throughout their studies. So it's not just a case of induction time, here's this massive pack of information, but going right, you can access this sort of funding. This has come from the alumni team in your first year, or we've introduced this mentoring scheme. Get involved. We've got alumni volunteers mentoring you guys if you need some help, or X, Y, and Z. So throughout their studies, try and have various touch points where you can get alumni support from, whether it be money, whether it be time, so on and so forth, and try and have these various touch points where, as students progress throughout their journey, they can connect with these touch points, feel supported. They then have a much better idea of what the alumni team's about, so that when they leave, they're more likely to be engaged, and of course, hopefully, will have had a more positive experience. So really utilise the alumni.
Engagement with a purpose, not just from a student perspective. Your time will come if you focus on that first and foremost.
Brilliant, guys. That's our time. Yaseen and JJ, thank you so much for sharing some insight into the alumni engagement from day, who knows, historic date from primary school. What I will do is say that we will be moving over to the breakout rooms, folks. So Yaseen and JJ will be joining us there. If you can see on your left-hand side here, there's a breakout room button. It's like a little door button. When you're ready, click on that, and we will see you there. I see a lot of these chat discussions here as well on the main thing. So it'd be nice to just have a continuing discussion there. But I'd like to say thank you once again for the both of you for your time.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dan.
Thanks, guys.